So, you've been watching football all your life, and you think you know all the rules, right? Well, you don't, cause I'm about to blow your mind. See, the offside rule is one of the most popular rules in the game, and I bet your favorite team has been denied several goals because of this. But there's so much to this rule you probably had no idea of. For instance, did you know that this rule doesn't apply to throw-ins, corner kicks, and even goal kicks? Yes, a goalie can smash the ball forward from a goal kick, and if the defenders think they've kept the opposing striker offside, then they'd have no argument on earth if the ball is tucked behind the goal line. But hey, don't go screaming at the referee if he lets the goal stand, because you might just get sent off for your aggression. Speaking of being sent off, did you know that a team must have a minimum of 7 players on the pitch for a match to start or continue? What this means is simple. Make sure your team doesn't get more than 4 red cards in a single match, because if they do, then the game has to be stopped and your team will lose. For some reason, the good folks making the rules don't want such an inequality in the number of players by a wide margin. I mean, 11 versus 6 would be nothing short of disastrous. Now, as far as having an equal number of players is concerned, there's one football rule I bet you've never heard of in your entire life. This rule is applied during the dreaded penalty shootouts, and it states that both teams must have an equal number of players during the exchange. So, no, you can't have 11 kickers while the other team has 10. Say, for instance, one team has a player sent off before the game goes into shootouts. It means the other team can only field 10 players for the kicks. A good example of this was when Zinedine Zidane got sent off for driving his head through Marco Materazzi's chest during the 2006 World Cup final. The game went into penalties, and since France were down by a man, Italy were forced to drop one of their players for the shootout. Gennaro Gattuso, who isn't known for his goal-scoring prowess, was the obvious choice to be left out of the shootout. Interestingly, he played the full 120 minutes of the match. The Italians wouldn't feel too bad about having to exclude a player though, as they went on to win the shootout and of course the World Cup. But hey, I bet you didn't know about the weird rule that states that you cannot be offside in your own half. Trust me, we've seen Fernando Torres take full advantage of this rule in the past, but we'll get to that later. So as far as the offside rule is concerned, it was created to prevent attacking players from setting up shop right in front of the opponent's goal. Imagine if Erling Haaland was standing behind your defense and in front of the keeper, just waiting for De Bruyne to pass the ball to him. The game would be so boring, as there would be no need for well-timed runs or perfectly calculated passes, which are all elements that make attacking football so sweet to watch. Well, this rule is only limited to the opposition's end of the pitch, and Barcelona found out the hard way in the 2012 Champions League knockout stage against Chelsea, when Fernando Torres was at the end of an Ashley Cole clearance, which fell for him right in the Chelsea half. He ran with the ball unmarked towards Barcelona's goal, rounded the keeper, and finished comfortably to knock Barca out and send Chelsea into the next round. Shout out to Ashley Cole for the unintentional assist, but I bet you didn't know that there are weird rules about what players literally wear. Man, that's just crazy. Of course, we know that outfield players dress differently from the keepers, but there's a rule in place which ensures that the way they dress is really different. Try this on for size. But did you know that only the keepers are allowed to wear tracksuit bottoms? I mean, we literally don't have to talk about it, because the outfield players can't wear them. This is one rule I'm sure you're glad about. Imagine if Cristiano Ronaldo had tracksuit bottoms on while playing, and his teammates wore their regular shorts. That would be an awkward and funny sight, no doubt. The match might even look like a training session. Anyway, we can't say for sure why this rule is in place. Could it be that the tracksuits affect the way the outfield players play, but don't affect the keepers? Speaking of which, who could forget Rene Higuita, the Colombian keeper famous for making a jaw-dropping scorpion kick save? And yes, he did it while wearing tracksuit bottoms. Moving on to another weird football rule, and this one involves showing a player a red card for bad behavior. But the funny thing about this particular red card rule is that a player can be given marching orders even before the match starts. But hold on, how can you send players off when they haven't even come on yet? Well, the rules are the rules, no matter how weird they are. This rule took effect in 2016 to prevent players like Patrick Vieira and Roy Keane from fighting in the tunnel on their way out for kickoff. Luckily for them, this rule didn't exist during the height of the Manchester United/Arsenal rivalry. Vieira and Keane would have seen a lot of red cards if it did. Anyway, this rule is spelled out by the footballing authorities like this. If a player is sent off before the team list has been submitted to the referee, he cannot be on the team in any capacity for that match. Though a replacement player can be brought in from the reserves, if the team has any. If a player who's been named on the team list submitted to the referee is sent off before the match, he can be substituted by a player from the bench if he was in the playing 11, and the substituted player cannot be replaced. If the sent-off player is not in the playing 11, then the team simply has to play the match with one less substitute on the bench, though the number of substitutions the team can make remains the same. Speaking of which, do you remember the time Patrice Evra hit a fan with an Eric Cantona-like karate kick before the start of a Europa League game? He was playing for Olympique Marseille at the time, and he was sent off for his actions, being that he had been named as a substitute on the team list that had been submitted to the referee. He wasn't replaced during the game, but it meant that Marseille were forced to play with one less substitute. The next weird rule is actually a very good one. It states that keepers cannot hold on to the ball for more than 6 seconds. If they do, then the referee will have to penalize the keeper's team by awarding an indirect free kick to the opposition team. So once a keeper gets the ball via an opponent's cross or shot, they have to let go of it in the next 6 seconds. This is not to say they have to throw or kick the ball away, as the rules allow them to bounce it or drop it on the ground. Of course, they eventually have to get rid of the ball once they drop it, because most attackers will come charging in. Speaking of attackers, bet you didn't know that they aren't allowed to be anywhere near the opposition's defensive wall during free kicks. Specifically, if the defending team has built their wall, the rules state that no attacker from the opposition team can be within 1 meter of the wall. As weird as this rule may sound, it actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, if attacking players are allowed to be near the walls, they can quickly move out of the way and create the much-needed space for their teammate taking the free kick to score. Of course, this will defeat the entire purpose of setting up the wall in the first place, which is to protect the keeper from receiving a direct shot at goal and make it harder for the free kick taker to score. Now, I'm sure you've seen many penalty takers miss the first kick but score the rebound. It looks simple enough, but there's one pretty weird rule attached to it. This rule states that in the case of a normal time penalty, the taker is not allowed to kick the ball until after another player touches it. More specifically, if the penalty taker's kick strikes the post and falls back out, the taker is not allowed to go for the rebound unless his teammate or a player from the opposition team has had a touch. This means that the taker can go for the rebound immediately if the opposition keeper makes the save, but not if it comes off the crossbar. I know that sounds pretty weird, but it's nothing compared to a world-class player betraying an entire country. That's just nuts. Now, I know you want to hear more about that, so click this video, buddy.